Happy Saturday, everybody! Oh man, I've been filming this video like 3 times now. It's like the third or fourth time. I think it's the third time. But here we are. This video, not only in response to, rehab rooms, rhetoric. I rewatched this video, and I noticed that he got so hypercritical and almost like he berated, Hamza like he knew the guy, or like he was just like attached or associated with him. Like the whole worldview of like you know just having this like unfeasible, unrealistic vision of how you're gonna be like strong like that. And guys don't really ask themselves the hard question, like what happens when you have kids and shit and you have to feed a fucking family. Like you can lie to yourself like, yeah, I'm gonna have enough money to not only stay muscular, lean and fit, and keep my gains, but also like take care of my family to like, the nth degree. Like maybe I'm like a softie and I'll like spoil my kids, which will be like, my, you know, kryptonite, my undoing. But so be it, right? Because the opposite of that is just like, it's how I was raised. Oh man, the consequences of cowardice. The consequences of cowardice. So I was watching this interview on the BBC, and they're talking to like a World War II veteran. He's like 100 years old. Yeah, man, time flies, right? And like the guy was breaking down in tears because they're like, "Yo, what does Remembrance Day mean to you?" And he's just like saying, "Well, I thought it meant that like I laid down all these like small white stones. They represent like all my fallen comrades and stuff. We fought for something that we thought meant something, but like we didn't doesn't mean a damn thing anymore, right?" And he's just like crying and stuff. It's just like the people on the BBC are like acting naive. Like they know that the country's gone to shit, but like I guess it's for the whole uh controlling and the hysteria, right? And then like his response was something else, right? He said, "Well, what we fought for isn't what I thought like we were gonna have today, and we even fought for their freedoms too." And he was just like sobbing at that point. And then I realized like, okay, you can't I can't put words in this guy's mouth. I don't understand the full context of what he's saying. So I think, at least from my observations, you could go about this like looking at 2 ways, right? Like he's either saying that he was fighting for the freedom against the tyranny of like dictators and like nationalists, fascists, all that stuff, right? And that's what he was fighting over. Like he wanted to end like all fascist types of governments, right? Or he's talking about the immigration and all the fucking people coming in the country and like fucking the entire population up and stuff. And like how like weak and limp dick the entire like system is. Like the police don't want to police. They want to police their own fucking population, their own local population. Put you in jail for like saying things online. The whole surveillance state. Like, because I was watching this as like I watched his interview on the BBC like separate, and then I watched a YouTuber called V Entertainment. I think it's that Romanian guy. I think it's Romanian TV. I think that's his name now. And he's like, you know, the idea that like, it's so comical to him that like the headlines read that Prince Andrews is just like had his title removed, stabbings in Birmingham and stuff. There's a stabbing just recently in Birmingham, right? The Pakistani Punjabi enclave. You can't go there. Everyone's all masked up and shit, attacking you with machetes. And how come you're not allowed to carry a knife and shit in like London, UK in general is like against the law, but all these masked motherfuckers get to carry that shit. There's like this video by Barack Amori. It's like an older video, but it's like coming out of there, and they're like they have metal pies, they have masks, they like attacking groups and shit. And apparently it's against the law to own pepper spray. Pepper spray, or man. Your government fucking hates you. Contempt, right? And this soldier's crying his eyes out, and I realized that like, holy shit, he's right. Like, what he fought for was basically fuck all and nothing because, of course I can't speak for him, but like, look at the state of this country, and that's like, you know, where we're attached to them as Canada and stuff, right? We're like related to we share some of their internalized politics and shit and governance. So what's bound to happen there will eventually happen here, given enough time and enough like, immigration, illegal and otherwise, right? And otherwise. So even legal immigration or semi-legal in the sense that like they come over here legally, whether it's travel, visa, tourism, whatever, right? And they've been doing this for years, by the way. This isn't something that like, oh, it's just new and stuff. No, they've been doing it for so long and been scamming the system for so long. It's only now that they're like complaining about it, and that's why you hear these people like going out of their way to attack like ICE police officers and stuff. I was going to watch a video by Acid Gold about them shooting at like an ICE police officer, and I was just like, that, damn it, man, I'm just gonna be like what fucking watching YouTube videos all day before I fucking make this like video. It's already like 8 o'clock. I gotta make this video. I actually shot it in the morning, and then I was like, fuck, I didn't record it properly. And then the second time, I recorded it with the wrong recording device. It was weird. Maybe I got the curse of Sungrat, Putting too much Nintendo footage in my PlayStation game. Yeah. The UK is dealing with the price of its cowardice, like the ability for it to be hypercritical of like masculinity and stuff. Because like it takes me back to the whole aspect of like you have the money to like basically harass your own citizens for talking to girls and shit. It's totally like that one ad where you see this guy and he's going after this girl. He's like, wow, he's totally into her and shit. And then this black guy comes out of nowhere. He's like, nah, bro. Like, what the fuck was that? Why would you do that? And it's just like this kind of like gay man shit where they want to fucking cull you into this like weird ass like beta man male, because it's like when you're dealing with like losers who were inbred and shit and come from like basically garbage throwing all over the place type people, right? Obviously you're gonna need as much help as you can get, and we're starting to see the ramifications of them. Like these people wanted to attack on like Halloween and pretty much subsequently every other day after that, and like the fucking cells of losers are just coming out of the fucking wetworks to just like massively kill people, do all these fucked up crazy things. Like I misspoke. I thought that like Cash Patel did save the day in America, in Minnesota, right? Him and the CIA, FBI, whatever, over in America. But here's the thing, right? I have this theory that maybe, and then just as like a maybe, I don't know for a fact, right? But there were other attacks around the world, but they're just not gonna talk about it because it's just like not only like the hysteria behind it, but like I think people are just invested too much in this like casino ass bullshit where they need a place to fucking wash their money, right? So they need these like fucking semi-legal Arab Gulf states to just like carry their bank, right? Where they're like doing some like shiesty ass shit where they're making like illegal bets or whatever, stage bets or I don't know, insider trading. It just seems like that to me because it's like, what's the constant point in the whole fucking downplay of it all? Why the constant need? for like, this kind of voter base, these kinds of people coming into the country, the whole racism aspect. They're part of America. They're this, they're that. Hassan getting, he didn't even get invited to the place, so he goes to this place. He doesn't get invited, doesn't have a chair for him or anything. He has like a bunch of, idiots interviewing him and shit. And it's just like, he can feel it too. Like the idea of him actually having any relevance or importance in this world is just like, it's gone. But I also have to bring up the fact that Mamdani won in New York. Because it's like when he won, all these people left. It was like, fucking millions, dude. So the news reporters were even commenting on this, right? They said, well, he wants to run all these social programs, right? And that's going to cost money. But if the biggest real estate agents, realtors or whatever, companies, they're just leaving and shit, like the tax burden is just going to be pushed on like the next guy. So like the celebrities, the bankers, whoever, like whoever's got that money, lawyers, they're gonna be, shouldering the burden of the New York people who like are basically eating out of the hands of the rich, who are like, basically babying them because they're just too fucking, lazy and stupid to do it themselves. Oh my god, my EDT is getting canceled and shit. And people are gonna be like, "Oh, I'm talking shit for bringing that shit up or whatever," because I'm not in that like, situation where I would need help and whatever. Like, I wouldn't understand. And it's like, yeah, but like, where's the money gonna come from though, right? It's just a fact of life that people just don't want to pretend that like, it comes from somebody. They think that like, if they embellish the paycheck of everybody to just like, cut a little bit off the bottom, nobody's gonna care. It's just like, a little bit here, a little bit there. Everybody pays into it, and then suddenly people get to eat and live for free. And that's what it all breaks down to. Like, he was promising these fucking pipe dreams to all these fucking retards in New York, and they ate it up. And like, you want to know the funniest thing about this? So, if enough people leave New York, right, and the tax burden becomes too great for anybody to call that place affordable, like, living standards, whatever, you got Gotham City. And not only that, the funniest part about all of this, and I know this is going to be the outcome, right? I would give it like 4 to 6 months. After about the 6 month mark, I think even people who voted for this guy are gonna leave New York, and they're gonna complain about it. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck, man? I voted for this guy. I voted for this guy, and he just like totally destroyed New York." Like, yo, dog, it's only been 48 hours. How can this guy be this much of a fuck up, dude? But like, again, the reason why he won, right, is that you know what I mean? Like these people are like expecting like, free this, free that, free everything, free like bus rides, free like fucking subway rides and shit. People are already stealing from the subway like crazy and stuff. Like, yo, these guys, the people who steal from the subway, like in New York, and they do it so casually and shit. Like, yo, imagine like if you had to lock up every single one of those motherfuckers. Like the fucking prison is full of people who are stealing subway fares. And the craziest part is, right? New York has this like air of arrogance that it's more important than it actually is. Like the only importance that it ever had was the people who decided to live there and like, invest their money. And I was watching a Sam Hyde video. And his friend said that yeah, they're gonna go to Philadelphia and invest there, and Philadelphia is gonna be the next place to blow up and shit. And that's what it's gonna be like. It's just gonna be musical chairs. People are just gonna constantly move away from these types of people and these types of politicians, because it's the people who vote in these kinds of politicians who play on people's feelings and shit, and like whatever, and like There's another reason why Mamdani won. Yeah, the consequence of cowardice. So I commented back in one of my other videos, I support Israel and shit. But I also said that, yo, if you're Jewish and you're around my age, slightly younger or whatever, or older, uh, you should go back and fight for your country. Like if you don't have kids, you don't have any obligations, like whatever, just go back and fight for your country, right? And I have a funny feeling that nobody or very little people like heeded my, words. They thought that like either I was telling them this so that they were to give up their lavish lifestyle of affluence or whatever the fuck, or I was telling them this to, put them in the crosshairs for certain death. And now, this is why I told you this. This is the real reason why. The people who live in Israel have no respect for you. Your own people have basically turned inward against their own. And Mamdani's victory in New York is very symbolic of that. When I saw those people on that like in the what was it? I think it was a library or a museum. I think it was a museum, right? And they were protesting for Palestine, and it was like one of the tents said "Jews for Palestine." You see this like little Jewish girl, she's shaking her fist. You know, this is what has happened, like the cancer that has befallen the Hebrew people. That the media has just cooked up this fucking lie alongside all these special interest groups for the sole purpose of like, physical, reimbursement. They're gonna get their fucking money, basically. They're gonna wash their money, they're gonna get their money, they're gonna keep their money, they're gonna make more money. So it all comes back to gambling. That's my theory, though. Right? Like, I have no concrete evidence or proof of this, so I'm not gonna just like bullshit it. But I just have like a funny feeling, like, the whole push for gambling, and then like the whole idea that like, oh, go to Dubai, go to this, go to that. It's like, what the fuck, right? Like, what is the real meaning and purpose behind that, other than to facilitate and normalize, like, okay, normal tourist travel, so that like, people who have to make business travel for business instead, business, right? They go over there and they do these things, they wash their money, and then like whatever, they get a obviously these Arab countries get a cut, but like again, right? Like we're to sacrifice for this fucking, age of like supposed, social justice, supposed like diversity, equality, this, that, and it's all just for the fucking money. Because, like, you know what I mean? Like, take a look at Nigeria, right? And we're getting like a bunch of like, what do you call that shit again? Lithium, right? It's in my PlayStation controller right now. Some poor Nigerian child miner slave labored for it and gave it to me. Not just kidding. Sony probably just like bought it. We bought it from like Elon Musk. He had some like lying around. It was like rocket ship or some shit like that. But like for real, right? Like the absolute massacre in Nigeria, and everyone just like ignores it. It's just like it's such a fucking whiplash because it's like we've cared for and opened the doors for so, and we still do, by the way, for the fucking Middle East, for Muslims in general, basically. But for the Nigerians, it's just like the silence is almost deafening. Like, and it's weird too because they check that box of the minority. Oh my God. But the cowardice of people, and like even people in like the first world who are just like tripping about like, I don't want to help out these Nigerians, man. I don't want to do it. It's not for me. Like, they didn't do anything for me, man. And it's like, yeah, of course, but then like when they're gone, like it's gonna just be worse for you, you idiot. No, I don't mean to be mean about it. Like I understand the fatigue about like, going to war with yet another people and making yet another bunch of enemies, another group of refugees. and a bunch of problems from that, right? But like, it all comes back to Hamza and the whole like thing because there was one thing that I missed about this whole spilling of the incident, right? So basically, Hamza, coming out on gear, it shouldn't really be that big of a deal, and it really isn't in the grand scheme of things, except for the fact that this guy took part in a boxing match, a kickboxing match, right? And I saw him, he was like, yeah, he padded up, but he wasn't wearing like full-on boxing gloves. So this man hops on gear, gets in the ring with a guy, and like if they both sign contracts, right? Meaning like they disclosed to each other that they were on that juice. Okay, fine, right? It's just like, whatever, a gentleman's agreement. But if this guy doesn't know that and like Hamza lied or whatever, just like signs the fucking contract and it's just in fine print, right? Like, yo, that's grounds to sue. So like, going back to the whole like, when he's like, talking about how Sam is like, yo, all this shit to bury me and shit. That's what he was referring to the whole time. I was like, what the fuck? Like he's crying because he's just like, oh, his friend, all this some gay shit, you know what I mean? But nah, like yo, it's legitimately like yo, he could be seeing some like dealing with some libel and stuff because it's like yo, he got in the ring with this guy. He didn't disclose to you that he's on gear, and then you lost to him in a fight, and it was televised and all that shit, and you're like humiliated. You probably went to like the infirmary or hospital, but like the cowardice of Hamza and like the people are just like, oh my God, dude. And I'm actually surprised Rehab Dude didn't point that out, but I don't think he knew either. But that is the cowardice, the consequences of the cowardice that we're all paying for. Well, I'm not really kidding. I'm just like laughing my ass off. Uh, third, fourth time recording this, so I'm done. I think I have like left out something, but I'll make another video about that. All right, take care, everybody.